Tonight, the semi-standoff over the so-called 51st state with the new Canadian Prime Minister face-to-face with President Trump for the first time. What it means for that punishing trade war and for the price you pay, plus what we expect to hear any minute from the White House on separately a potentially major military de-escalation in the Middle East. We're going to bring that to you live when it happens. Plus, new tonight, Motown legend Smokey Robinson, now accused of sexual assault and a hostile work environment by some former employees. More on the developing news from that lawsuit coming up. Then an all-out scramble to try to fix that travel mess going down at Newark Airport tonight with the domino effect across the country. What the FAA is doing as we speak to try to fix those hours of delays. And new social media posts we are just getting in show a man who crashed his car into Jennifer Aniston's house may have had an obsession with the Friends star. We're going to take you through all the details. And in tonight's original, potentially dangerous fallout from Doge's funding cuts. Why some weather experts say we may now be less protected against extreme storm systems. That's coming up later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and tonight Canada's new prime minister is saying it to President Trump's face. Canada is not for sale. The two leaders together for the first time ever today with the big topic, trade, of course, but the big question turning to one of the president's pet projects, you could call it, his push to try to make Canada the 51st state, despite Canada's clear objections.
You have said that Canada should become the 51st state. Were you joking?
No. Well, I still believe that.
There are some places that are never for sale.
I do feel it's much better for Canada.
It's not for sale, won't be for sale. Ever.
But never say never. Never say never.
Respectfully, Canadians' view on this is not going to change on the 51st state.
So that's that. But on trade and on your money, we're kind of ending the day pretty much where we started it. No trade deal, no movement per the president on removing any of the tariffs on Canada in this trade war, like on steel, cars, energy, anything not under the existing agreements already. Still, Prime Minister Mark Carney says at least the two are now fully engaged, even if it's just the start. Our team has been tracking the markets all day. They didn't move too much before or during these talks, which could be a signal that Wall Street is tired of the talk. They want to see action. So when is action coming with Canada, with China, with anyone on these trade deals? And will all this 51st state talk make it harder to get to a deal with Canada? Kelly O'Donnell is live for us outside the White House. And you saw some of the back and forth there, Kelly. You saw the president. We heard the Prime Minister of Canada saying he has asked the president as of today to stop calling Canada the 51st state. We'll see how that plays out. Overall, the tone seems somewhat positive, at least publicly in the room. So what does that mean for this punishing trade war?
Well, it was certainly a start at trying to repair what has been a very frayed relationship, maybe a turning of the page with the former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who drew so much of the ire of President Trump. He's out of office. Mark Carney is in the seat. And if you're grading by the Canadian politeness curve, those were pretty intense comments from the Prime Minister asserting Canadian sovereignty, but in a very nice way. And President Trump talking about friendship and niceness. And at the same time, sort of popping Canada again over the issues of products that he says the U.S. doesn't need. That's very debatable if you talk to people in specific sectors who rely on elements and products that come from Canada, from farmers to people who use lumber to various different industries. But it was a start, and a start of a new relationship, and one where there are a lot of common interests. And certainly President Trump is aware that he has frayed those relationships with his way of talking about things. He was specifically asked later in the day, not in the Oval here, if he will call him Governor Carney. He repeated those words, but said he hasn't done that yet and doesn't know. Always keeping the doors open is a classic Trump way of dealing with this. Part of his leverage, part of his deal-making, part of his relationship status to keep people uneven even when things are largely positive. So there was a lot of substance to talk about today, and certainly behind closed doors, that's part of what they did.
So, Kel, what's interesting here is that, the Prime Minister largely won his race by separating himself from the United States and by putting some distance between himself and President Trump as we've talked about, kind of anti-U.S. sentiment started picking up speed in Canada thanks to these tariff rollouts here. Let me play a little bit of that.
We will need to dramatically reduce our reliance on the United States. As a nation, we've played it too safe by relying too much on the United States. Our old relationship with the United States A relationship based on steadily increasing integration is over.
It also seemed, to a degree, like President Trump kind of understood that there was some distance here between himself and Mark Carney here, that he was trying to separate himself a bit.
Yes, I think that's true. I think clearly the president recognized that this is an important neighbor and an important partner, and there are many more things we have in common than those that divide us. And he's under a lot of pressure regarding the broad sweep of tariffs, and certainly Canada is part of that package. So we do see this trait in President Trump of being, in some ways, very polite and solicitous, and at the same time also still maintaining some of the difficult issues that he has certainly he has put a price on Canada in many ways, and Canadians are trying to navigate that in their new government.
Kelly O'Donnell, plenty to watch there. Never a dull there as you're out at the White House. And Kelly, just so we understand, too, we are expecting maybe in the next couple of minutes to hear from President Trump on an unrelated matter regarding a potential military de-escalation in the Middle East, right?
So what we understand is there will be an event that was already on the books but is now public for Steve Witkoff to become swearing-in ceremony for his role as an envoy. And the White House has prepared us that the president intends to talk about the military action against Houthis during that. So that's something to watch.
Kelly O'Donnell live for us there at the White House, of course, where we expect to hear from the president on that. We will take that to you live when we get it. Kelly, thank you so much. Also tonight, the FAA warning there is not going to be a quick fix for that travel nightmare happening at Newark Airport just outside New York City, with those hundreds of cancellations and delays being caused partly by a lack of controllers, some of whom went on leave, trauma leave, after a really scary moment when their tech basically melted down last week, causing them to lose contact for about a minute with flights that were already in the air, planes that were already out there. And now we are hearing for the first time about what that moment sounded like. Listen.
I just got told that the approach lost all their radars. 3 of the 4 radar screens went black, and they have no frequencies. They want you to be advised that they may not be able to radar contact you because of the radar issues, and they may lose you on for certain times of when you're flying. They want you to be advised of all of that.
Right now, I've got passengers heading into Newark facing delays of up to 3 hours, with more than 100 flights canceled in just the last day. I want to bring in Tom Costello, who is at Newark Airport for us. And Tom, you talk about the scramble to try to get this fixed. It is not going to be immediate. It is not going to come in the snap of a finger.
It's not. And part of the challenge here is they have a shortage of air traffic controllers, as they have had for some time here at Newark. And the TRACON, let's be clear, we're not talking about the tower at the airport. We're talking about the radar facility, which they actually moved to Philadelphia, right? So that TRACON facility handles the Newark airspace. The trouble is, to get certified for a new facility takes a year and a half or so. So you can't just bring somebody in from Seattle and have them take over this job. They are short air traffic controllers. As you mentioned, part of the problem is that some controllers were so stressed out after what happened last week, losing radars, losing radios, that they quite literally said, I need a break. I need a mental health break, and they are taking short-term disability. The DOT Secretary, Sean Duffy, today at the White House talked about the challenges here at Newark to try to get this airport up and running, back to normal capacity, and the delays right now that are taking place.
Now, were planes going to crash? No, they have communication devices. They can see other air traffic like GPS in the airplanes. But it's a sign that we have a frail system in place, and it has to be fixed. When you have an incident like this, you want to make sure that people are safe, and so you just have less departures out of the airport until we feel comfortable and safe that the system isn't going to go down again.
Yeah, so the bottom line here is that this is a full court press, and the DOT, the White House, the FAA, this week will unveil a plan to upgrade and overhaul the entire air traffic control system nationwide, Hallie. But that's not going to happen for years. It'll take 3 to 4 years. And as you and I have discussed, billions of dollars. And so this is going to continue for some time.
So I want to be super duper crystal clear, though, for today, for tonight, for this week, for right now, right? Is the prevailing sensibility among the people that you are talking to, the experts, the sources, the folks on the ground, is the prevailing sensibility that these changes at Newark, right, the pulling back, et cetera, that has ensured a safe experience for people flying through that airport?
Yeah. Yeah, and the FAA and the union insists it is safe. I talked to an air traffic controller today, a veteran controller who was in the TRACON when they lost everything. He talked about the experience. What was it like to lose everything? Here's what he told me in a conversation. It was on the phone. I transcribed the conversation. Essentially, he said it was very scary indeed because you have planes up there that suddenly they had no communication with. People in those planes, no communication with these people whatsoever. We couldn't hear them, he said, but I'm sure that they were calling for us. He said the worst case scenario is that you have a midair collision in a situation like this. He says we're lucky it was only 45 seconds. He thought 45 seconds that they were dark, and it was not on a busy time of day. But he was traumatized by this.
It is, you said the word stressful, Tom, to say the least, when it comes to these kinds of situations. Tom Costello, we're glad to have you there at Newark. Plenty for you to watch for sure. Thanks. Also tonight, some 20 million people across parts of Texas and Louisiana are watching the threat of extreme weather tonight, with a potential tornado already seen in Jewett, Texas. This is just east of Waco. Look at this. This is some of the damage on the side of the road there. This is only the beginning for this set of storms, with the potential for things like a ton of wind, big hail, and more twisters. And we're talking about big cities here, right? Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, places like Austin, Lake Charles, etc. There's also a real threat of flash flooding, with a ton of rain hitting the same areas now day after day after day. You're seeing that happen already in Brenham, Texas, where police have now confirmed the death of a little girl who was swept away by water while walking home from school with her sister yesterday, just 10 years old. Aaron Gilchrist is joining us now from Lake Charles, Louisiana. This is a place that has seen a lot of rain, expecting even more. And as we've seen, devastating consequences here.
Hallie, that really, I think, highlights how real the threat is from these types of storms. We're going to see a lot of rainfall across this region over the next couple of days, and that's the warning that's come from the National Weather Service to people here in Lake Charles, across southwestern Louisiana, across parts of Texas as well, that there is a great potential for heavy rainfall, for rainfall that leads to flash flooding and potentially even some river flooding. We've seen some of the areas that have been warned about that already, saying that they could get 3 to 8 inches of rain over the course of the next 3 days, that there could be localized flooding up to a foot in some of these places as well. And you highlighted some of the potential damage that there is a concern about. Not only are we worried about people having their property damaged, there is a concern about a loss of life as well, because when these flash floods happen, you often don't get to see the water coming, and it can be really strong, powerful water that can take someone away, as happened in Texas yesterday. And so that is what the warnings are about today. The flash flood warnings, the tornado warning, tornado watch that has been posted for this region as well until late tonight. These are all things that the Weather Service wants people to be thinking about, to be looking out for. And again, as we noted, Hallie, it's going to be a concern today, tomorrow, into Thursday, into and through Thursday as well. Hallie?
Aaron Gilchrist live for us there at Lake Charles. Aaron, thank you very much for that. Also in Georgia, new developments tonight in the case of a man there accused of trying to kidnap a kid from Walmart. But now his attorney is questioning whether race played a part in this accusation. Both the man and his attorney argue that new surveillance video shows the alleged crime didn't even happen. Here's how the defense lays out the timeline from this moment. You're looking at it. You see it there back in March, when Mahendra Patel showed up at Walmart looking for some medicine for his mom. Now this, watch it here. This is the moment that his lawyer says he asked a mother of 2 for some help finding Tylenol. Do you see him there? She's in like a mobility scooter. It's kind of on the left side of your screen there. Now, during that conversation, Patel's lawyer says one of the children was about to fall out of the scooter, and that Patel kind of grabbed him to keep him from falling. Now, the mother, however, says this moment is actually Patel trying to kidnap the child. So you can see the video. Patel walks away alone. Minutes later, he runs into the family again, saying, according to his attorney, something basically like, hey, I found the Tylenol, thank you. You can see her reaction, that interaction there. Patel then checks out, chats with an employee, and leaves the store. Here's what he's saying today after spending 6 weeks in jail and getting out on bond.
You know, I cannot even dream about somebody alleging me for doing this kind of thing. Forget about me dreaming to do this. So it was a shocker. In fact, I didn't even realize why they were arresting me in the first place.
I want to bring in NBC News correspondent Priya Sridhar, who is in the courtroom today in a case that is getting a lot of attention here. Talk us through how the prosecutors are laying out their case now.
Hey, Hallie, yeah, what was so interesting about all of this is that initially when that arrest was made back in March, the general public was very much concerned about safety around here. They said they couldn't believe that a man could snatch a 2-year-old at a Walmart. But just to give you a sense of the timeline, he was arrested on March 21st. That surveillance video wasn't released to the public until around April 15th. And so he spent 47 days in the detention facility behind me here. But it all comes down to this video that you're looking at right here. And that's what both sides pointed to at the courtroom today. They say that you're seeing two very different things in this video. Let's take a listen to what both the prosecution and the defense had to say in the courtroom today.
The video couldn't be clearer. Mr. Patel did not try to kidnap this child. And if you think that there's a child that's falling or might fall and someone's trying to stand up to help you, the reasonable thing would be to help that person.
This defendant reached down and grabbed a 2-year-old child from the lap of a woman in a Walmart at 8:30 at night and attempted to pull that child from her lap.
By the way, Hallie, I know you could only see the back of Patel's defense attorney's head, but her name is Ashley Merchant, and she may be familiar to you because she actually represented one of Trump's co-conspirators in that really famous case here in Georgia where the district attorney of Fulton County was trying to allege that Trump had tried to overturn the presidential election results in this state. So she's a very well-known attorney, and she actually revealed that the prosecutor, the district attorney in Fulton County, was having a secret relationship with the special prosecutor, Nathan Wade. So her name might be familiar to you, Hallie.
Priya Sridhar, lots to follow there in Georgia. Priya, thank you. Let's bring it back here to Washington now. We're going to take it live to the White House where the president is taking questions as we expect word of a potential major military announcement. Let's listen.
50 to 100 deals right now because, you know, I'm the shopkeeper and I keep the store. And, you know, I know what countries are looking for and I know what we're looking for. And I can just set those terms and they can go shopping or they don't have to go shopping because everybody wants to shop here. This is like a beautiful store. This is like one of Bernard Arnault, or maybe I should say Alex, even more importantly, young, the future. But Bernard's an honor to have you. We'll have a meeting after this. But he has the greatest stores in the world and they want to shop. Our country is the greatest store in the world of that kind. And everybody wants a piece of it. And they took advantage of us for years because we allowed our presidents allowed it to happen. You know, I don't blame China and I don't blame Vietnam. And I could name every single country all the way up and down the line. South Korea, every single country took advantage of us without exception. Japan, these are friends of mine, but they took advantage of this country. They ripped off our country, selling us millions and millions of cars a year. And we sold them none. We weren't allowed to sell them a car. They took advantage of us. I don't blame them. I blame the people that sat behind that desk that allowed it to happen. But I don't allow it to happen. I didn't in the first term, but this is a much stronger position because we had the greatest economy in history in our first term. Stock market was up 88%. We had numbers much better than that. But this is going to be, I think, a much better term. And I think the tariffs are coming in, starting to come in. We were losing $5 billion plus a day on trade. Now we're not losing that kind of money, and we'll soon be making a lot of money a day and a year and a month.
You and perhaps the Attorney General. The Justice Department recently received a criminal referral against New York Attorney General Tish James for fraud. We haven't heard much about it. Could you or the Attorney General give us an update as to what's going on with that investigation?
Well, I don't want to get involved in something that Pamela's involved with. If you'd like to say something, Pam, I can say unrelated to that. She's a disaster for New York. She's a horrible, horrible human being. And I think she's a total crook. There's no question about it. But that's just my opinion. Pam's going to have to do what she wants. She's a very bad person. She's a very, very bad person who campaigned solely on, I'm going to get Donald Trump over and over again. She's a sick person. But that's has nothing to do with what Pam does. Pam is going to do what's right. She always does. I've known her a long time. Yeah, go ahead, behind you.
Thank you. On Gaza, you said there's been progress in the Middle East. But at the moment, as a colleague said, in Israel, Netanyahu is saying he now wants to conquer Gaza. Is there any prospect of any movement on that? Are you happy with what Netanyahu is doing?
Well, we've gone very slowly because we want to try and get as many hostages saved as possible, and we've done a good job in that regard. 2 weeks ago, I had 10 hostages come in, and they thanked me profusely. And I said, you have nothing to thank me about. What they went through is incredible. They lived in a pipe. You know, they keep hearing about caves. It was a pipe 3.5 feet high. And they didn't know if they were going to breathe. They didn't know if they were going to live to the next day. They lived like hell. I couldn't believe the stories I was hearing. And they weren't grandstanding. These were people that were seriously mistreated. One was in for 512 days. One was in for 361, I guess, days. And one was in for a shorter period of time. The stories were unbelievable. I said, how many people are left? How many are left? They said 59. I said, oh, wow, that's more than I thought. They said, well, only 24 are living, but now it's 21. That was a week ago. Now it's 21 are living. And these are young people. These are young people don't die. Old people die. Young people don't die under these conditions. So of the 59 people, and they said 59, and I said, really? But they said only 24 are living. And I now correct, I say 21, because as of today, it's 21. 3 have died. So this is a terrible situation. We're trying to get the hostages out. We've gotten a lot of them out. As the expression goes, there's 21 plus a lot of dead bodies. You know, parents came up to me on numerous occasions, but a couple in particular, they came up to me 2 weeks ago and they said, please, sir, my son is dead. Please get us back his body. They wanted his body. He's dead. They know he's dead. They wanted his body as much as you would want the boy if he was alive. It's a very sad thing. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
You are seeing President Trump there, along with J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff as well. I want to bring in our chief White House correspondent, Peter Alexander. And Peter, interesting here with this moment of focus on international news. A brief reference, I believe, to the Middle East, but no further details on something that the president talked about earlier, which is the potential for de-escalation with the Houthis, the Iran-backed rebels in Yemen, who just days ago struck Israel with a missile very close to that country's main airport in Tel Aviv.
Yeah, Hallie, we did actually at the top of the president's remarks today and note that this was an event in the Oval Office that was intended to serve as a swearing-in ceremony for his Mideast envoy, one of his closest friends in the private world, Steve Witkoff, who has been traveling on his behalf overseas in recent months, not just on the front lines of the efforts to negotiate some form of a deal with Iran, but also more notably with Russia, having met on multiple occasions now, we understand, with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. The president did, at the opening of this event, announce that the U.S. would stop bombing the Houthi rebels in Yemen in exchange for the Houthis no longer attacking American ships. We should note that when the president initially alluded to this earlier during his meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister in the Oval Office, it caught at least many of the people with whom we speak in the defense community off guard. And U.S. military operations, we're told, against the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels continue today. And as of right now, is NBC's reporting they continue. That's according to multiple defense and U.S. officials. So the word of any sort of ceasefire, as it were, between the U.S. and the Houthis has not gone downrange to cease any of these military operations. But it is significant as we watch this play out, as the president is expected to be traveling to the Middle East in the course of the next several days, departing early Monday. Reporters like myself will leave just ahead of him over the course of the weekend, going to Saudi Arabia, going to Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. The president has been trying to help in whatever form he can to cool tensions in that region, but they only did escalate in recent days, with the Houthis earlier this week firing off a missile that got through the Israeli defenses near Ben Gurion Airport. That is the main international airport in Israel, in Tel Aviv. It was a hypersonic missile that was used there. And separately, Israel then struck back, hitting, among other targets, the airport in Sana'a in Yemen there. So the relationship between Israel and the Houthi, Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in particular, has escalated in recent days here. But it appears that vis-a-vis the U.S. and the Houthis, that relationship appears, at least for the moment, in the president's eyes, to be diffused a bit. So that's the main headline that came out of the president's remarks just a short moment ago.
Our chief White House correspondent, Peter Alexander, getting ready for another busy week ahead. Peter, thanks for being with us. Appreciate that. Let's take you out west now for some breaking news out of Los Angeles tonight, where 4 women are making some disturbing new allegations against a Motown legend. I want to show you a live look at a press conference with the accusers and their attorneys. It's happening as we speak in California. In a lawsuit filed today against Smokey Robinson, the women who used to work for him say he sexually assaulted them and created a hostile work environment, among other things. Robinson's wife is also named in the lawsuit. It details multiple allegations, some as recent as last year. One employee says Robinson sexually assaulted her at least 23 times. 3 of the women say they didn't want to report it to police, in part because they were afraid of risking the possible adverse effect on their immigration statuses, according to the suit. Another says Robinson's, quote, brutal sexual advances were constant and even predictable while she worked for him. His accusers are seeking at least $50 million. NBC News has reached out to Robinson's reps for comment. No word back yet. Camila Bernal is joining us now. And obviously, Camila, this is a late-breaking situation. What else do we know? What else are we learning?
Hallie, these are some serious allegations, and the attorneys just now calling Smokey Robinson a serial rapist that needs to be stopped. So again, we have not heard from Smokey Robinson, but these allegations include sexual assault, battery, false imprisonment, you name it. I mean, here is what they're saying. They're saying that these allegations happened repeatedly. You mentioned one of the women saying it happened at least 23 times. The attorneys and the lawsuit saying that you could see a pattern in these allegations. All of them were either housekeepers or house staff, and some of them even working together at the same time. The oldest of these cases going back to 2006, employment in that year, and you mentioned the latest happening just last year. These women saying that they were forced to resign because of the repeated sexual assault that they went through. And you mentioned some of them saying that they were worried about their immigration status. Their attorneys also saying they were worried because they lived paycheck to paycheck. They needed that money and were afraid of losing their livelihoods. They were also afraid, essentially, of the status and the influence that Smokey Robinson had, and were afraid of essentially speaking out. Some of these things, obviously not something I can detail on TV, but some serious allegations, Hallie.
Camila Bernal, thank you very much for that reporting, and I know we'll be on top of any word that we get on that. Appreciate it. We got a lot more to get to here on this already busy show, because after the break, a man crashing his car right into the home of Friends star Jennifer Aniston. More on whether the suspect may have been intentionally targeting the star. Plus, a potentially groundbreaking innovation to detect breast cancer, how a new bra could help. In a moment, why some bettors' Triple Crown hopes may be dashed. We'll have more on that in a second. But first, we'll take you out west, because we're learning tonight that the man accused of crashing his car into the gate of a former Friends star house at times referred to himself as her husband, saying he loves her. The crash happening near Jennifer Aniston's home in the Bel Air neighborhood of L.A. Our sources tell us Aniston was home at the time. She was not hurt. But here's some audio from L.A. Police Dispatch. They can't confirm the audio is the exact call about the crash at Aniston's house, but the details all match up. Listen.
Security has the suspect at gunpoint, is on the ground, out of the vehicle. The suspect that drove the vehicle through the front gate.
Suspect in custody.
Through the front gate, you heard it there. It's not the first time Aniston has had a security scare at one of her homes. She had to get a restraining order against somebody back in 2010. Liz Kreutz is joining us now. So we know about this sort of crash at Aniston's house, and now word of Aniston being referenced in some of these social media posts from the suspect.
Yeah, a scary situation for Jennifer Aniston, certainly. And it's interesting to see now that we are learning more about who this man is. His name, according to law enforcement, is Jimmy Wayne Carwile. He is 48 years old, and it appears that he is from Mississippi. And according to what we believe are his Facebook posts, he is definitely, for lack of a better word, interest or intense interest in Jennifer Aniston. There are several posts that reference her. Here's one of them. It says, calling Emmanuel Jennifer Joanna Aniston Carwile, his last name, my bride. There's another post where he posts about the corruption that is going on to keep him from her. So again, law enforcement, they have not given a motive behind what happened, but this is definitely providing some indication that he has some interest in her. Jennifer Aniston, she has not commented, neither have her reps. He is being held in Los Angeles County Jail right now with no bail. We do not have a date for his potential arraignment, but we know that this happened yesterday afternoon with Jennifer Aniston inside the home, Hallie, while it happened.
And we said, too, Liz, that years ago, right back in 2010, Aniston went through sort of obviously a different situation involving a restraining order against somebody else.
Yeah, so 2 different security scares she's had in the past. In 2005, there was a man that took a taxi to her rented Malibu home and jumped a fence, got into the property, and was stopped by her employees. And then 5 years later, in 2010, she had to get this restraining order from a man who drove across the country to L.A., was prowling areas he thought she lived, and was found with a bag with a sharp object, duct tape, and love letters to Jennifer Aniston.
Ugh, scary stuff there. Liz Corrigan, thanks for being on top of that one for us. Appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, a second suspect is now facing charges in the murder of the television reporter found dead in a New Orleans hotel room where he was covering the Super Bowl. This new suspect was apparently an accomplice, according to police, to a woman already charged in the case who was caught on camera leaving the reporter's room. Number 2, dozens of pro-Palestinian protesters just arrested after they occupied a Boeing-funded building at the University of Washington. The group is demanding the university cut ties with Boeing because the company sells Israel its fighter jets. The university says it will not be intimidated. Number 3, controversy in Pittsburgh after police raided a gay bar right in the middle of a drag show. The mayor says the raid was a compliance check for overcrowding, alleging the bar had nearly double the number of people it should have had inside. The mayor also acknowledged bar raids have historically been used to intimidate members of the LGBTQ+ community. The bar's owner says they are choosing to view this, I'm quoting here, as an opportunity for growth. Number 4, MIT researchers are now designing a scanner that you can slip into your bra to try to detect breast cancer. You see it? It's kind of like a big patch that can get images of breast tissue in kind of a similar way that an ultrasound does. MIT hopes this can help women at higher risk detect cancer in between routine mammograms. Number 5, there is not going to be a triple crown for the winner of the Kentucky Derby because Sovereignty is not going to run in the second leg of the Triple Crown coming up at Preakness. His trainer says they are working toward Belmont. That's the third leg of the Triple Crown coming up in June. Overseas now, the seclusion is beginning at the Vatican for more than 130 cardinals getting ready just hours from now to start the secret conclave to elect the next pope. They're going to start with the Mass in St. Peter's Basilica before heading behind closed doors in, of course, the Sistine Chapel to vote for however long it takes. And based on recent history, it's probably not going to take all that long. Look at this. Every election of the last 5 popes only took 2 or 3 days. So if that holds, like if history repeats itself here, we're looking at maybe a new pope by the weekend. Of course, the big question is not just when and who, but how. How will the next pope lead? What will their priorities be? But the Catholic Church facing a number of challenges, from sex abuse and financial scandals to a general trend of people around the world turning away from organized religion. One cardinal, the Archbishop of Singapore, saying, "We need a Superman." Ann Thompson is joining us now from the Vatican, where they're getting ready, I guess, to pick their Superman. And it is going to be, I think, a dramatic and super high interest 36, 48, 72 plus hours.
Yeah, it really is, Hallie. And that cardinal is exactly right. We call it a unicorn because the Catholic Church has a lot of problems. One, it's got a financial crisis. 2, as you said, it's got people, especially in the Western Hemisphere, who are no longer going to church, who've fallen away from the church. It has, it's tried to negotiate peace and has failed. It has a lot of issues. So they're looking for one person to address all of this. And that's really hard to find. But they are going to try, and it starts tomorrow. It begins with a Mass in St. Peter's Basilica for the cardinal electors. We believe there are 133 of them. And then after that, they will take a break. And then later in the afternoon, they will process into the Sistine Chapel, where they will swear an oath of secrecy for this conclave. And then we expect them to vote for the first ballot or make their first ballot. Now, as I said, there are 133 electors, more than have ever been in a conclave before, so it could take some time. Hallie?
We talk about the timeline here. That's what everybody wants to know. And I know you're going to tell me if you had a crystal ball, you'd be betting on Powerball, I'm sure, Ann, because nobody really knows. But we did lay out the way that history has played out. And to think it's going to take 2 weeks before a new pope is just not realistic based on past precedent, right?
Yeah, no, nobody's looking at 2 weeks. I mean, I think maybe 2 days, maybe a little optimistic, only because, again, the large number of cardinal electors who really, many of whom don't know each other. They have spent the last 2 weeks having these congregations, these meetings where they get up and speak about the issues facing the church. But still, is that enough time to really know who is going to be an appropriate leader? You can see we'll have one vote tomorrow evening, and then they could vote up to 4 times on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And if they can't reach a decision on Saturday, then they would have a pause for prayer and reflection. Here's hoping they figure it out before Sunday.
Ann Thompson, lots to watch for you. You'll be in the thick of all the action as well. We'll have special coverage right here on NBC News Now and NBC News. Ann, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Coming up later in the show, some rare Republican pushback against the president. Why one senator says he's a no on a key nominee with ties to the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Plus, police in Seattle looking for a fugitive who escaped the airport in handcuffs. Where they think he is. Next. Taking you to Capitol Hill tonight, where the president's getting some rare Republican pushback. Yes, some resistance from members of his own party on one of his nominees. This is him here, Ed Martin. He's the president's controversial pick to be the top prosecutor here in Washington. Why controversial? Well, Martin helped defend some of the people you see here at the Capitol during that deadly January 6th attack. He even organized some so-called Stop the Steal rallies based on the lie that President Trump won the 2020 election. Of course, President Trump did not win that election. And now this man, Republican Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina, who, by the way, is up for re-election this cycle. He says Martin's relationship to the riot is a red line.
If Mr. Martin were being put forth as a U.S. attorney for any district except the district where January 6th happened, the protest happened, I'd probably support him, but not in this district.
Now, remember, we haven't really seen a ton of pushback from Republicans on the president's picks for different positions, except for this guy, Matt Gaetz. Remember, the president's first choice for attorney general, that nomination derailed several months back. Melanie Zanota is live for us on Capitol Hill. Talk to me about this Martin pushback. Is it real? Does it have teeth? Will Tillis's position matter here?
Yeah, so Hallie, actually, Tillis's vote really does matter here, and his opposition is enough to sink the nomination, and that is because the makeup of the Senate Judiciary Committee, where this nomination would be processed, and where Republicans need to stick together completely on any party line votes in order to succeed. So Tillis coming out against this nomination and communicating that directly to the White House was actually a really big deal. And the chairman of that committee, Chuck Grassley, essentially acknowledged that they don't have the votes. They did not put him on the agenda for a key meeting this week, although he refused to say that the nomination is officially dead. Just take a listen.
I want president nominees to be successful, and that means we put on people that have the votes. That isn't the end of it, but that's where we are right now.
But do you plan to have a vote on Martin? Do you plan to actually have a vote?
I think I've said all I can say on the subject.
Now, in terms of the path forward here, there are a couple of options. Number one, Trump could pull the nomination and put forward someone else, although it seems unlikely given that Trump has done a social media post really boosting Martin. He's been making calls, so still standing behind Martin at this point. The other option is that Trump and the White House try to convince Tillis to cave. But I caught up with Tillis myself, and he said it would be very difficult to change his mind at this point, given the deep concerns he has over the January 6th attack on the Capitol. And not to mention, there's also a clock on Ed Martin here, because after May 20th, he can no longer serve as the interim attorney. So Republicans have to move fast. And at this point, Hallie, it does not look like they are going to do so.
It's so interesting, but take a step back here when we talk about GOP pushback. You've got this Tillis situation. You've got an example out in Ohio where Governor Mike DeWine, who's term limited, is looking to block his state party from endorsing Vivek Ramaswamy, backed by President Trump in the GOP primary there. And then back on the Hill, you've got like some angst, I would call it, over SALT, that state and local tax deduction piece of the president's sort of much desired tax bill. But I have to say, Mel, when we're talking about Republican resistance, these examples are the exception very much rather than the rule, right? I mean, it is still very much Donald Trump's party.
That is exactly right. And in the rare cases where we have seen Republican pushback, it's either something that is so egregious, as is the case with the Matt Gaetz nomination, or what we're seeing a lot of is when Republicans feel like their own political futures are at stake. Tillis, for example, he's up for re-election in a purple battleground state. And then a number of those House Republicans who have been the most vocal about what they want to see or not see in this tax reform package are also from these moderate, vulnerable districts. In fact, a bunch of them are meeting right now with Speaker Mike Johnson to express concerns about potential cuts to Medicaid. But even then, part of the reason they feel comfortable sticking their necks out is because Trump himself has also said he doesn't want to see cuts to Medicaid. So we'll see how that all shakes out. The thinking, or at least hope right now among GOP leadership, though, is that ultimately every Republican or enough Republicans are going to fall in line because no one really wants to cost Donald Trump at the end of the day, Hallie.
Melanie Zanona live for us on the Hill. Mel, thank you. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day. And because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Western Bureau, a manhunt going down right now in Seattle with police looking for an inmate who escaped from an airport with his handcuffs on, who is supposed to go to Kentucky, where there are some warrants out on him. But according to the airport, an agent lost control of him. He was even seen on security cameras taking a train through the city. So the search is on. Out of our Southeast Bureau, the Florida governor has signed a new law banning fluoride from drinking water there in just the last couple of hours. That makes Florida the second state to take this step after Utah did first a couple weeks ago. It'll go into effect July 1st there. Also out of the Western Bureau, take a look at this. A United plane clipping another plane's wings as they were pushing back from a gate in San Francisco. The FAA says it happened right in a spot where air traffic controllers don't communicate with flight crews. Fortunately, nobody was hurt. People were able to get off the plane as normal. Still ahead for us tonight, some new concerns over a hepatitis A outbreak in the LA area. Why that's bad news, not just for Southern California, but maybe the rest of the country, too. Health officials now sounding the alarm about an outbreak in Los Angeles of hepatitis A, with infections spiking. They're actually triple what they were compared to 2023's numbers and double what they were compared to last year. What's interesting here, we know this is a virus that typically affects people experiencing homelessness at a higher rate because they don't have as much access to clean bathrooms. But health officials say this outbreak, these infections, have actually come from people without those risk factors. I want to bring in Dr. Natalie Azar, who's joining us now. Why is this happening? Why is this outbreak spiking and spreading so quickly?
So I think the explanation, Hallie, are the key words that you used in the intro, and that is that this is a highly, highly contagious virus. And just because you have a home and you have access to clean water and practice good hygiene habits doesn't mean that you couldn't theoretically be exposed from contaminated food or water. And the tricky thing about hepatitis A is that you can be contagious for a week or two before your symptoms even begin. So the problem here is that clearly, based on wastewater values, this is pretty widespread in the community right now, which means also that I think we're going to see this outbreak a little bit more protracted, and it will probably go on for a few weeks or even a couple of months from now, Hallie.
So our health officials, what are they telling people in LA to do? And what's their concern about this maybe spreading beyond just California?
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing that they're talking about is prevention. And the best way to prevent hepatitis A is through vaccination. There is a CDC recommendation for all individuals, starting with children at the age of 12 months, to be vaccinated, which is highly, highly effective. In the absence of hepatitis A vaccine, it's really about hand hygiene and good hand washing. If you are at a higher risk, let's say user of recreational drugs, certain sexual practices, if you don't have access to toilets and clean water, those are the individuals that they're really urging vaccination in right now, Hallie.
Dr. Natalie Azar, thank you very much for that breakdown for us tonight. Really appreciate that. We've got a lot more to get to here on the show, including how DOGE funding cuts could be making extreme weather possibly more dangerous. The new alarms from former National Weather Service leaders in our one-on-one tonight. To tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's the growing concern from weather experts that more Americans could be in danger because of those recent and proposed cuts. It could mean fewer forecasters keeping watch for extreme weather. All of it happening during the peak season right now for severe storms across the country. NBC News meteorologist Chase Kane reports.
Right at dinner time on April 17th,
we have a tornado warning issue for Pottawatomie County.
Supercell storms started producing tornadoes across eastern Nebraska.
Really scared last night.
Our Omaha affiliate reporting homes and cars badly damaged, windows blown out, roofs ripped off, one family caught off guard.
We didn't think anything of it, and then my wife started screaming at me, so we hightailed it to the basement, and it was about 20 seconds after he got down there that it ripped through.
Luckily, everyone survived, but with only seconds to spare, is it possible they could have gotten an earlier warning? What we do know from an official bulletin is that the Omaha National Weather Service office didn't have enough staff to launch regular weather balloons that day. Only one instead of two, which meant their data was hours old and only showed the threat of hail, not tornadoes.
And that's impossible to forecast when and where. Not having that data could have saved a life or created a warning that had greater lead time. But if you do it over and over and over again, I can promise you that not having that data is going to be a problem when it comes to forecasting.
And it's all because of a political tornado. DOGE federal employee buyouts and cuts earlier this year, leading to that, quote, lack of office staffing. And now, in a rare move, every living former director of the National Weather Service, dating back to President Reagan, is warning that President Trump's proposal to cut NOAA funding by nearly 30% will lead to a, quote, needless loss of life. We reached out to the White House, and a Commerce spokesperson said, in part, NOAA does not anticipate any disruptions in services as a result of staff reorganizations, and the NWS will continue to meet its mission of ensuring public safety amid critical weather events. But a former NWS director disagrees.
We are generating kind of a Swiss cheese weather service. We have holes throughout the Weather Service now that are not well thought out.
Republican Congressman Mike Flood represents the area hit by those 6 tornadoes on April 17th with a short-staffed weather office. So he called the White House to get more meteorologists to Omaha.
For decades, the National Weather Service personnel have not been classified as public safety. They are clearly public safety, and that's something that we need to do in Congress.
The last NOAA administrator, Rick Spinrad, also tallied that so far, staff cuts have cost the Weather Service 7,000 years of collective experience.
It's like having incoming missiles and not being able to tell anyone when they're coming or where they're coming.
A NOAA spokesperson told NBC News work is underway to restore services at local forecast offices around the country.
There are things in NOAA that I'm sure could be improved, but you don't do that improvement with a hatchet and just randomly cut large chunks. Weather in this nation should not be a political issue.
Chase Kane is joining us now. Chase, you heard Representative Flood, again, Republican, saying it's up to Congress to make some of these changes here. What can they do? What are the next steps here? How does this work?
His office told me, Hallie, that they are already drafting that legislation. There's some technical language involved, so they say it's probably going to take them a few weeks. But once they have that bill ready, they are fully expecting that this will have bipartisan support. Because, as you heard in that story, weather is not a partisan issue. Tornadoes and wildfires and hurricanes don't care who you voted for. There was also recent research from the American Meteorological Society that found that for every tax dollar we invest in the National Weather Service, there is a return to Americans of $73. So a 73-to-1 ratio, a return on our investment for making sure that these meteorologists and these forecasters are staffed and have the equipment that they need to give us forecasts, Hallie, that ultimately keep every American safe.
Chase Kane, thank you very much for that reporting. That does it for us for this hour. Thank you very much for watching. We've got more coverage picking up right now. Tonight, the semi-standoff over the so-called 51st state, with the new Canadian Prime Minister face-to-face with President Trump for the first time. What their sit-down means for that punishing trade war and the price you pay for the stuff you need. Plus, Motown legend Smokey Robinson tonight accused of sex assault and a hostile work environment by some former employees. More on the developing news from that new lawsuit coming up in just a second. Then an all-out scramble to try to fix the travel nightmares going down at Newark Airport with a ripple effect across the country. What the FAA is doing as we speak to try to solve hours of delays. Plus, tensions boiling over on the border between India and Pakistan. The new attacks from India, just as we've been on the air tonight. We're going to have a live report in a minute. And social media posts, we're just getting in, show a man who crashed his car into Jennifer Aniston's house may have had an obsession with the Friends star. We're going to take you through all the details later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and tonight Canada's new prime minister is saying it to President Trump's face. Canada is not for sale. You've got the two leaders together for the first time ever today, with the topic, of course, trade, those tariffs, what happens from here. But one of the big questions has turned to one of the president's pet projects, you could call it, his push to make Canada the 51st state, despite Canada's clear objections.
You have said that Canada should become the 51st state. Were you joking?
No. Well, I still believe that.
There are some places that are never for sale.
I do feel it's much better for Canada.
It's not for sale, won't be for sale, ever.
But never say never. Never say never.
Respectfully, Canadians' view on this is not going to change on the 51st state.
Okay, so that's the 51st state scuttle. But what about trade? What about your money? What about these tariffs? Got to tell you, we are ending today pretty much where we started it. No trade deal. No movement for the president on removing any tariffs on Canada in this trade war on steel, on cars, on energy, on anything that's not already covered under an existing agreement. Still, Prime Minister Mark Carney says, hey, at least the two are now fully engaged, even if it's just the start. With our team tracking the markets all day, not moving too much before or during the talk. So the question is now, is there any action coming at all on any trade deals? And could this 51st state talk be affecting tariff negotiations? We've got it all covered tonight. We want to take you to the White House to start us off. And we'll begin tonight with our White House correspondent, senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell, who's live for us on the North Lawn. So, Kelly, a lot to follow here today. The big question walking in the door had been, what happens with these tariffs? What happens with these trade wars? And there is no indication that these two countries are any closer to a deal now than they were 8 hours ago.
That's a fair assessment, and so much of the energy today was on all of the things about the nature of the relationship, but we don't have any updates yet about the substance of the real opportunity, as Prime Minister Carney described it, as he was deflecting the kind of push for Trumpian expansion of territory. He was saying, no, the opportunity here is on trade and new partnerships and the close relationship that has long existed between the United States and Canada, one that has clearly been frayed through this process of the president talking about not only wanting to annex the country, but also diminishing a lot of the products that they export and talking about the imbalances in trade and security. So meaningful conversations were part of the intention today. What we don't have a good sense of is, were there any things discussed in the private time when the cameras weren't there that could resolve some of the issues? And certainly for Prime Minister Carney, this is an important time, new in his administration, new in his time in government, to meet the president face to face, and what will be many other opportunities, because kind of the international circuit of important summits and conferences that both the prime minister and the president attend, they will see each other more. And so today was a measure of perhaps setting the personal piece, and the substance part, we're waiting to hear more details.
The other, you talked about this, Kelly, this 51st state conversation here, because after the meeting with the president, Mark Carney, who, by the way, largely got elected just a couple of weeks ago based on some of the anti-Trump sentiment that started percolating in Canada after, of course, these tariffs went in place. And he got some questions about this whole 51st state thing. Let me play it because he said something interesting.
Have you asked the president to stop calling Canada the 51st state?
Yes.
When did you ask him?
Today.
Okay, specifically, what did you ask him?
Exactly what you just said.
But what words did you use? How did you ask him?
Look, I gave you an answer. Do you have a follow-up? Look,
He said, I asked him today to stop calling Canada the 51st state. Time shall tell, Kelly, whether President Trump is going to acquiesce to that request from Prime Minister Carney. But what is clear, he didn't call him governor the way he did for his predecessor, Justin Trudeau. I wonder, in the conversations you're having with folks at the White House, is there any concern that when we talk about these tariff negotiations, this whole 51st state side piece is going to be a barrier?
Well, it certainly is a thorn in the shoe of Canadians. And the Prime Minister, when he was at home and during his campaign, was far more direct in saying that the relationship between the United States, as it had been known, was broken. There, he was very carefully not giving the soundbite. He answered the question, but he did not provide what we would consider the soundbite, where he puts it in his own words, recapping the exchange. Why? I would presume it's because he wanted to deliver that message privately, but is not trying to inflame it further publicly. That's just my guess from covering all of this. But the president was also asked in a separate event after the meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister, a separate setting here, about the issue of using the governor moniker, which he did with Justin Trudeau. Here's how President Trump responded to that.
As far as calling him Governor Carney, no, I haven't done that yet, and maybe I won't. I did have a lot of fun with Trudeau, but I think this is a big step up. It's a good step up for Canada. We had a great meeting today, really good. I think the relationship's going to be very strong.
So if we grade that by the Trump scale, that seems like a pretty favorable reaction to the president having this first encounter in person with Mark Carney, holding on to his cards, if you will, about whether he could use any insults in the future. But clearly, he is open to having, at least based on what he's saying, both men are saying they see the potential for opportunity here. So there was a bit of, I don't know if you would characterize it in just sort of the sizing each other up piece of this, but it had that dimension to it, because obviously these are serious, important issues. Name calling is sort of in its own category.
Yeah, it all speaks to the relationship, Kel. But on this point about trade deals, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens when the Treasury Secretary goes to Switzerland, meets with the, his Chinese counterpart there. I know you'll be watching all of it. Will we see you from overseas next week, Kel, or are you staying back in D.C.?
Yes, I'm going to be on that trip.
Consider yourself booked. Thank you, friend. Appreciate it. Also tonight, the FAA is warning there is not going to be a quick fix for the travel nightmare happening at Newark Airport, not anytime soon at least, with hundreds of cancellations and delays being caused partly by a lack of air traffic controllers, some of whom went on trauma leave after a scary moment when their tech melted down. It meant they lost contact for about a minute with flights that were already in the air, some of them so stressed that they took time off. And now we're hearing for the first time what that moment sounded like. Listen.
I just got told that the approach lost all their radars. 3 of the 4 radar screens went black, and they have no frequencies. They want you to be advised that they may not be able to radar contact you because of the radar issues, and they may lose you on for certain times of when you're flying. They want you to be advised of all of that.
Right now, passengers arriving into Newark are facing delays of about 3 hours on average. More than 100 flights have been canceled in just the last day. I want to bring in Tom Costello, who has made his way to Newark Airport for us tonight. And Tom, I understand that you have some new information for us based on your reporting. What's up?
Yeah, that's right. Hallie, listen, some breaking news here. I have been talking to a veteran current controller who was in the facility the day that they lost both radios and radars last week. He tells me that happened twice before, 3 times since August here at Newark. This controller, veteran controller, tells me they have lost radios and radars all at once on 3 separate occasions. And he says they have lost radios 8 to 9 times since August. So the structural problems here, and they're blaming some of this on a data feed issue, but the bottom line here is this is not a quick and easy fix. And as you and I discussed, we're not talking about the tower up above. We're talking about, and that's not the right video. Let me just make it clear, because we're not talking about the people who look out the window. We're talking about the people who are really in those dark rooms that you see, who are in front of a radar, and they are managing the airspace that is above the tower, right up to about 10,000 feet. That facility is not here at Newark. It's at Philly. So they are talking about controlling the airspace. They are controlling the Newark airspace from Philly, and it's there in that facility called a TRACON that they have been struggling with equipment failures, and now they've got staffing issues because 5 controllers walked off citing a medical leave, citing a stress. They left and are on short-term disability because of the stress of dealing with planes in the air when they've lost radar and radio.
Tom, can I ask you a question? And I don't know if we know the answer to this, and I don't want you to get over your, of course, those previous incidents that controller told you about. Did those also trigger the same kind of leave and staffing issues that we saw from this most recent incident?
Not to our knowledge.
Okay.
And in this case, as I mentioned, 5 staffers in total, 5 controllers. And the theme that I'm getting from this veteran controller I'm talking to is essentially, listen, we understand we have to work overtime. Every controller is working around the country, 6-day weeks, 10-hour days, because there aren't enough controllers. And that will take years to staff up. But at least give us working equipment. At least give us radios and radars that work. That sentiment, by the way, has been echoed by Democrats and Republicans, by the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, as well. Everybody acknowledges this is a high priority issue, but there's no quick and easy fix. And one last thought here, Hallie.
Please.
You might say, oh, well, they're short of controllers. Surge people in from Seattle or wherever, L.A., Denver, you name it. They can't do that. Everybody who's in any particular TRACON or tower must be certified for that facility. That can take up to a year and a half.
But so does that mean, Tom, that if you got a flight next month into Newark, that you should be prepared for potentially 3-hour delays even then?
Yes. Okay. I hate to say it, but yes. I mean, listen, the bottom line is United Airlines is already canceling 36 flights a day, right? They're waiving change fees. You've got other airlines also waiving change fees, JetBlue, for example. There is no quick response fix to this. There just isn't, other than the airlines scaling down their flights into and out of Newark.
Tom Costello, live for us at Newark Airport. We're glad to have you on the beat, as always, Tom. Thank you very much for being with us and for bringing us, of course, that breaking news. Appreciate you. Also tonight, we are keeping an eye on a severe storm system, some really extreme weather affecting 20 million people across parts of Louisiana and Texas, with flooding already reported just north of Austin now. Look at this, high water in one of the parking lots there. A possible tornado has already been spotted in Texas, in Jewett, just a bit east of Waco. Look at the damage on the side of the road there. And the storms are only getting started. We're looking at the potential over the course of the next 24 hours for really intense wind, big hail, more twisters even, with the possibility of flash flooding in the works as well. We're seeing that potentially in places with big populations, right? Big cities, Dallas, Houston, maybe Lake Charles, Louisiana. That is where we find our Aaron Gilchrist. And Aaron, I know it is messy where you are. I understand from your team on the ground that you have started to see some hail as well.
You know, Hallie, if you had come to us 3 minutes ago, it would have been a much uglier picture. We were getting hit with sideways rain. The wind picked up a lot. It's starting to die down now. There was hail, about dime-sized hail, that I had to sort of turn my back in order to be even sort of kind of facing the camera here. The camera, if we can pull out a little bit, you can see, you know, my pants are soaking wet. When we walked out here, it was drizzle, and then the sky just opened up. We got thunder, we got lightning, and that is the reality of these types of storms, the setup that the National Weather Service is warning people about, that we're going to see these thunderstorms pop up. We're going to see big downpours, and then they could move on. There have been severe thunderstorm warnings across this region all day long. They're continuing now, combined with the flash flood watches, flood warnings as well in some places. We've seen tornado watches across this entire region until 9 o'clock Central tonight. There have been some tornado warnings in parts of this region as well. The warning meaning those people in those counties and those areas are being told to take shelter as those warnings are in place. Some of them, I believe, are expiring in the next couple of minutes here. On top of that, we talk about the potential for river flooding. This is the Calcasieu River here in Lake Charles. It's just about at flood stage. They expect another 3 to 8 inches of rain in this area over the next couple of days, potentially a foot of rain localized in some areas here, Hallie. And so we're in really the beginning of what is going to be a severe weather train coming through this region over the next couple of days.
Aaron Gilchrist live for us there in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Get out of the hail, friend. I'm glad that you're at least starting to get a break from the intense weather, at least for the moment. Thank you. Take you out west to some breaking news out of Los Angeles tonight, where 4 women are making some disturbing new allegations against a Motown legend, Smokey Robinson. Here's what the accuser's attorney said in just the last hour.
We believe that Mr. Robinson is a serial and sick rapist that must be stopped.
In a lawsuit filed today against Smokey Robinson, the women who used to work for him say he sexually assaulted them and created a hostile work environment, among other things, detailing multiple allegations in this lawsuit, some as recently as last year. One employee says Robinson sexually assaulted her at least 23 times. 3 of the women say they didn't want to report it to police, partly because they were afraid of risking what's described as the possible adverse effect on their immigration statuses. Another says Robinson's, quoting here, brutal sexual advances were constant and even predictable while she worked for him. NBC News has reached out to Robinson's reps for comment. No word back yet. I want to bring in Camila Bernal, who is joining us now. Camila, what else do we know?
Yeah, so we know that the attorneys are saying that these were allegations that happened repeatedly, that there was a pattern in a lot of these allegations. And actually, 3 of the women that are making these allegations were at that press conference. They wore masks and sunglasses, but wanted to be there to show that they are real. And also saying essentially that they never came forward because they were afraid of their immigration status, afraid of losing their paycheck, because these are women that lived paycheck to paycheck. Also felt shame because they had to tell their husbands and their children what was going on, a lot of them working at the same time as housekeepers, and more than one of them describing in this lawsuit what they call this blue room. They were forced to be in this room. He would come in either wearing almost nothing or nothing at all and would force them to do things that I cannot even describe to you, but he would place a towel, and multiple women describing the same thing, saying they were taken to places where there were no cameras. The attorneys, though, today saying they do have evidence, and also saying and accusing his wife of also knowing that this behavior existed and not stopping it. So again, very serious allegations. We have reached out to his reps and have not heard back, but it is interesting to see what's going to happen in court. You mentioned they're seeking $50 million in damages, and they're hoping that they will succeed in court. Of course, this is likely going to be a long process, Hallie.
Likely indeed. Camila Bernal, thank you very much. In just the last few hours, we got to take you to some developing news overseas. India firing missiles into Pakistani-controlled territory in a major escalation in long-simmering tensions there, specifically in the region of Kashmir. India targeting 3 locations it says were being used by militants. We understand at least 1 child has been killed, according to officials there, 2 other people hurt, according to the Associated Press. All eyes now are on these 2 nuclear-armed neighbors. I want to bring in Danielle Hamamjian, who is following this for us. And this had been, Danielle, a concern for people watching this region for a while, the potential for this kind of escalation with these strikes now happening tonight. Talk us through what's next.
Yeah, this is very much a developing story, Hallie, and we are talking about 2 nuclear-armed neighbors, so the potential for escalation is a huge concern. 2 weeks ago, militants killed 26 civilians in a popular mountain resort in India-controlled Kashmir, which India blamed on Pakistan. Islamabad, in return, denied any involvement. Pakistan had said India is planning a military incursion, and it had warned it would hit back if it was targeted by India. The Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, has vowed to punish the backers of that attack, saying, quote, beyond their imagination. Now, in the early hours of Wednesday morning, multiple loud explosions were heard in Pakistan and Pakistan Kashmir. India says it targeted 9 sites in the area. 1 child, as you mentioned, Hallie, according to the AP, was killed. 2 people were wounded. The Indian government saying in a statement, and I'm going to quote it here, that this was Operation Sindoor that was launched early this morning, hitting terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, from where terrorist attacks against India have been planned and directed. India's Ministry of Defense saying the Pakistani militaries were not targeted and that India has demonstrated considerable restraint in the selection of the targets and method of execution. It is justice served, according to the Indian government. Now, Pakistan has replied, saying, according to the Prime Minister here, that these were cowardly attacks, that Pakistan has every right to respond. And this here is key, Hallie, that a forceful response is being given. So this is obviously a developing story, and we'll see if and how and when Pakistan responds.
Yeah. Of course, the overnight hours there in the region, which means we make it a lot of developments by the time we wake up here in the U.S. tomorrow morning. Danielle Hamamjian, thank you very much for being on top of it. Potentially more to come. Back here at home, some new developments today in the case of a Georgia man accused of trying to kidnap a kid from Walmart. But now his attorneys are questioning whether race may have played a part in what they call a false accusation. He and his lawyer arguing new surveillance video shows the alleged crime didn't even happen. Let me show you how the defense lays out this timeline from the video you're seeing back in March when Mahendra Patel showed up at Walmart looking for some medicine for his mom. So if you watch here, this is the moment his attorney says he ran into a mother of two, like meaning saw her, asked her for some help finding Tylenol. Do you see her there? She's in like a mobility scooter. This is on the left side of your screen. During that conversation, Patel's lawyer says one of the children was about to fall out of the scooter and says Patel kind of grabbed him to keep him from falling. Now, the mother, however, says that moment, this is actually Patel trying to kidnap the child. You can see Patel walking away in the video. Minutes later, he runs into the family again. His attorneys said he basically said something like, hey, I found the Tylenol, thank you. You can see the interaction there. Patel checks out, chats with a worker, and then leaves the store. Here's what he's saying today after spending 6 weeks in jail. He is out on bond now. Watch.
You know, I cannot even dream about somebody alleging me for doing this kind of thing. Forget about me dreaming to do this. So it was a shocker. In fact, I didn't even realize why they were arresting me in the first place.
I want to bring in NBC correspondent Priya Sridhar, who is there. She was in the courtroom today. Help us understand this, right? Because this is a case that is getting a lot of attention now, given some of the dynamics at play. What are prosecutors trying to say here?
Hey, Hallie, that's right. Yeah, so this all took place on March 18th, and about 3 days later, Mahendra Patel was arrested. And at the time, the overall community here in Atlanta was very sympathetic toward this 26-year-old woman who was making those accusations. About 4 weeks go by, and then finally on April 15th, this surveillance video from Walmart was released by his attorney, Ashley Merchant, and it seemed to paint a very different picture. So now there was an uproar in the community. People were wondering how could he possibly still be detained after this video was released. And what everyone was sort of waiting for inside the courtroom today is, does the district attorney's office perhaps have some evidence that they hadn't told us about before? But they all pointed to this same piece of video that you guys are watching right now. Let's take a listen to what both sides had to say about it.
The video couldn't be clearer. Mr. Patel did not try to kidnap this child. And if you think that there's a child that's falling or might fall and someone's trying to stand up to help you, the reasonable thing would be to help that person.
This defendant reached down and grabbed a 2-year-old child from the lap of a woman in a Walmart at 8:30 at night and attempted to pull that child from her lap.
So the big takeaway here, Hallie, is that the judge did, in fact, rule that Mahendra Patel wasn't any sort of risk to the greater community at large, and that's why he decided to grant him that $10,000 bond. However, the district attorney's office is not backing down, and they're not dropping any of these attempted kidnapping charges, Hallie.
And Patel's attorney, Priya, has raised this question of whether race may have played a factor here?
Yeah, that certainly is something that everyone is talking about. Now, hundreds of Patel supporters came out to the courtroom today. A Change.org petition has generated about 47,000 people demanding justice for Patel and calling for his release. And many of those supporters who came out to the courthouse today were part of the larger South Asian community, and they really believe that he was targeted because of his race. Take a listen.
I would really consider it as a racial discrimination case, that he was wrongfully targeted because of his race and ethnicity. Maybe the so-called victim was trying to extract some, monetary gains out of this case.
And another thing that the supporters brought up to me is that they really believe, as though it seems like the police in this case sided with the younger white woman over this older man who also happens to be a person of color, Hallie.
Priya Sridhar, live for us there in Georgia. Priya, thank you very much for that reporting. Also tonight, a new win for the Trump administration with the Supreme Court keeping the president's ban on transgender people in the military in place, at least for now. The case centered around an executive order President Trump signed on his first day in office, which effectively rolled back an order from the Biden administration that let trans service members serve openly. Now, this ruling from the court was short. It wasn't signed. We know the 3 liberal justices dissented. Our Pentagon correspondent Courtney Kuby is following this one for us tonight. What is the practical impact of this on the Defense Department now moving forward, Court?
Yeah, it's been hard to keep track because this has really gone back and forth several times since President Trump
first announced early on in his time in office that he was going to essentially ban people who have been diagnosed with gender dysphoria or those service members who have had any kind of medical treatment because of gender dysphoria. So that would eliminate many, if not all people, transgender individuals serving in the military today. Well, of course, that was challenged in court. And as I said, it's gone back and forth. Today's ruling by the Supreme Court, though, says that the Pentagon, the U.S. military, can move forward with implementing this new policy that would mean that anyone with gender dysphoria, again, who has either been diagnosed with it or sought medical treatment for it, would no longer be allowed to serve in the military. Now, Hallie, we have asked for the practical impact of this out of the Pentagon. They are referring everything back to the Department of Justice. So at this point, we don't have a sense of exactly how long it will be before we may actually see those service members reporting back to an administrative job and then ultimately being separated. But the early timeline before all the legal challenges on this would see some of them completely separated from the military in just a matter of months. Now, the lead plaintiff on this case put out a statement late today reacting to the Supreme Court decision. This is Emily Schilling. She's a commander in the United States Navy right now, saying, "We are not a theory. We are not a policy debate. We are real people doing real jobs in defense of a nation we still believe in, even when it struggles to believe in us." So an emotional statement coming out of, again, the lead plaintiff. There are multiple people involved in this lawsuit. Many of them have served for years in the military with distinction, having done deployments. They are challenging this, saying, we have proven that individuals who serve openly as transgender men and women can still be of value and can serve honorably in the United States military, Hallie. This will now go to another appeal, though.
Courtney Kuby, lots to follow there from your beat at the Pentagon Court. Thank you very much for being with us. More to get to coming up here on the show, including the immigration raids at D.C. restaurants, including one run by a fierce Trump critic. Plus, why the thousands of people standing in long lines at the DMV may not need those real IDs, at least right now, anyway. Next. Well, one of the universities at the center of a big fight with the White House says it's cutting nearly 200 staff in just a moment. But first, some new developments here as NBC News is learning about apparently immigration agents visiting multiple restaurants across Washington in raids, including one owned by a fierce critic of the president, Jose Andres, according to multiple sources talking with NBC News. Gary Grumbach is joining us now. It's an interesting one, Gary, because we started to hear murmurings about this, right? Rumblings about these sort of immigration movements at these restaurants here in the city all day long. Why these restaurants, and what's been the pushback?
So, yeah, we have been told that more than a dozen restaurants were visited by DHS and ICE agents today. They've been told they've been handing out paperwork. This is I-9 verification paperwork. Basically, I-9 is the form they have to fill out when you get a job to prove that you are authorized to hold that job. They've been handing out this paperwork to more than a dozen restaurants. There's no real rhyme or reason to why the restaurants were chosen. Some were more upscale, some were chains. There was a bagel shop, popular bagel shop on the list. So no rhyme or reason to that at this point. But the blowback has been swift from everyone across this story. Mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, said that she was very unhappy when she heard of these visits by ICE and DHS agents. And she said that D.C. police, MPD, were not at all involved in any of this. Restaurants themselves took matters into their own hands when these visits happened. Some locked the doors of their restaurants and wouldn't let the agents in. Those agents apparently left after some time. Some took the conversation outside, away from paying customers, to not worry paying customers about the ICE agents that were in their midst. And the owners of these restaurants, one of them, Millie's, was quoted on the record to NBC News saying that the Trump administration was focusing on dangerous criminals when it related to ICE immigration enforcement arrests and not necessarily upscale lunch spots. Hallie.
That's interesting. You know, the Jose Andres thing caught our attention, too, because he has been notably outspoken against the Trump administration, against the president as well. Have we heard from him yet at all on this, Gary, or not yet?
So we have reached out to Jose Andres just because Hallie, one of the Chinatown area restaurants, was one of the ones that were targeted today, and they should expect a visit in the next few days, we're told, when these agents come back to verify the I-9 forms. Hallie?
Gary Grumbach all over this one for us tonight. Gary, thanks for scrambling into a camera for us. Appreciate it. Also tonight, we're learning the man accused of crashing his car into the gate of a Friends star at times referred to himself as Jennifer Aniston's husband, saying he loves her. The crash happening in Aniston's neighborhood in Bel Air in L.A. Our sources tell us she was home, but she was not hurt. Here's some audio from L.A. Police Dispatch. They can't confirm it's the exact call about the crash, but the details all match up. Listen.
Security has a suspect at gunpoint, is on the ground, out of the vehicle. The suspect that drove the vehicle through the front gate.
Suspect in custody.
It's not the first time that Aniston has some kind of security scare at one of her homes. Back in 2010, she had to get a restraining order against somebody. Liz Kreutz is joining us now with more. So we know about this sort of crash at Aniston's house, and now word of Aniston being referenced in some of these social media posts from the suspect.
Yeah, a scary situation for Jennifer Aniston, certainly. And it's interesting to see now that we are learning more about who this man is. His name, according to law enforcement, is Jimmy Wayne Carwile. He is 48 years old, and it appears that he is from Mississippi. And according to what we believe are his Facebook posts, he is definitely, for lack of a better word, interest or intense interest in Jennifer Aniston. There are several posts that reference her. Here's one of them. It says, calling Emmanuel Jennifer Joanna Aniston Carwile, his last name, my bride. There's another post where he posts about the corruption that is going on to keep him from her. So, again, law enforcement, they have not given a motive behind what happened, but this is definitely providing some indication that he has some interest in her. Jennifer Aniston, she has not commented, neither have her reps. He is being held in Los Angeles County Jail right now with no bail. We do not have a date for his potential arraignment, but we know that this happened yesterday afternoon with Jennifer Aniston inside the home, Hallie, while it happened.
And we said, too, Liz, that years ago, right back in 2010, Aniston went through sort of obviously a different situation involving a restraining order against somebody else.
Yeah, so two different security scares she's had in the past. In 2005, there was a man that took a taxi to her rented Malibu home and jumped a fence, got into the property, and was stopped by her employees. And then 5 years later, in 2010, she had to get this restraining order from a man who drove across the country to L.A., was prowling areas he thought she lived, and was found with a bag with a sharp object, duct tape, and love letters to Jennifer Aniston.
Ugh, scary stuff there. Liz Kreutz, thanks for being on top of that one for us. Appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, a second suspect is now facing charges in the murder of the TV reporter found dead in a New Orleans hotel room where he was covering the Super Bowl. This new suspect, according to police, was apparently an accomplice to a woman already charged in the case who was caught on camera leaving the reporter's hotel room. Number 2, a woman is suing National Geographic, saying her husband was killed after he appeared in a documentary showing Afghan men working in mines. The woman says the filmmakers were warned that showing close-ups of the men could put them in danger. And after a video of her husband spread online, he was apparently captured and tortured by the Taliban. Disney, Nat Geo, and Hulu have not immediately responded to our request for comment. Number 3, Columbia University laying off something like 180 staffers working on federal grants, saying they were impacted by the president's newest decision to pull funding for the school. Remember, the administration had created a list of demands in order to restore that money that Columbia did not comply with. The university says it does not make these decisions lightly and that they are still committed to research efforts. Number 4, MIT researchers are designing a scanner that can slip into your bra to try to detect breast cancer. Here it is. Look at it. It's kind of like a big patch, right? Apparently, you slide it in, it can get images of breast tissue similar to how an ultrasound does. MIT hopes this can help women at higher risk detect cancer in between routine mammograms. Number 5, the clock may be ticking for folks trying to get a real ID before tomorrow's federal deadline. It's coming up quick, peeps. Long lines at DMVs, long lines at offices. But here's the thing. If you still don't have one and you can't get one by tomorrow, you'll still be able to travel. You've just got to bring some other documentation. DHS says you have to go through some extra steps to get through security, at least for the time being. Stay overseas now, because right now the seclusion is beginning at the Vatican for these 130-plus cardinals getting ready just hours from now to start the secret conclave to elect the next pope. They're going to start with a mass in St. Peter's Basilica before heading behind closed doors in the Sistine Chapel, of course, to vote for however long it takes. And based on recent history, it's probably not going to be all that long. Look at this. Every election of the last 5 popes, they all only took 2 or 3 days. So if that holds, if history is any sort of indication, we may be looking at a new pope by the weekend. The big question, of course, is not just when and who, but how. How will the next pope lead? What will their priorities be? With the Catholic Church facing a number of challenges, from sex abuse and financial scandals to a general trend of people around the world turning away from organized religion. One cardinal, the Archbishop of Singapore, saying we need a Superman. Ann Thompson is joining us now from the Vatican. It is going to be, I think, a dramatic and super high interest 36, 48, 72 plus hours.
Yeah, it really is, Hallie. And that cardinal is exactly right. We call it a unicorn because the Catholic Church has a lot of problems. One, it's got a financial crisis. 2, as you said, it's got people, especially in the Western Hemisphere, who are no longer going to church, who've fallen away from the church. It has, it's tried to negotiate peace and has failed. It has a lot of issues. So they're looking for one person to address all of this, and that's really hard to find. But they are going to try, and it starts tomorrow. It begins with a mass in St. Peter's Basilica for the cardinal electors. We believe there are 133 of them. And then after that, they will take a break, and then later in the afternoon, they will process into the Sistine Chapel, where they will swear an oath of secrecy for this conclave. And then we expect them to vote for the first ballot or make their first ballot. Now, as I said, there are 133 electors, more than have ever been in a conclave before, so it could take some time. Hallie?
We talk about the timeline here. That's what everybody wants to know. And I know you're going to tell me if you had a crystal ball, you'd be betting on Powerball, I'm sure, Ann, because nobody really knows. But we did lay out the way that history has played out. And to think it's going to take 2 weeks before a new pope is just not realistic based on past precedent, right?
Yeah, no, nobody's looking at 2 weeks. I mean, I think maybe 2 days, maybe a little optimistic, only because, again, the large number of cardinal electors who really, many of whom don't know each other. They have spent the last 2 weeks having these congregations, these meetings where they get up and speak about the issues facing the church. But still, is that enough time to really know who is going to be an appropriate leader? You can see we'll have one vote tomorrow evening, and then they could vote up to 4 times on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And if they can't reach a decision on Saturday, then they would have a pause for prayer and reflection. Here's hoping they figure it out before Sunday.
Ann Thompson, lots to watch for you. You'll be in the thick of all the action as well. We'll have special coverage right here on NBC News Now and NBC News. Ann, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Coming up, this pretty stunning voicemail messages just played in the courtroom of the Karen Reed trial. Plus, the reappearing act of a Russian journalist who escaped from a Moscow prison. We'll explain. Multiple profanity-laced messages played in court today in the second trial of the Massachusetts woman accused of murdering her police officer boyfriend. Prosecutors say Karen Reed called John O'Keefe more than 40 times in the hours before he died with no answer. You can see some of the messages here. A voicemail saying, "John, I blank hate you." A text, "Your kids are blank alone." Another voicemail, "You are blank using me right now. You're blank another girl." Remember, prosecutors say Reed hit O'Keefe with her SUV back in 2022 and then left him in the snow to die. Reed says she's being framed by O'Keefe's friends. Our Emily Aketa is following this one and has more.
Hallie, we really see the prosecution continuing to lean into Karen Reed's own words, whether it be through her voicemails she left, text messages between her and John O'Keefe, or TV interviews that she's done. Through those voicemails played for the jury earlier today, you get a sense for some of the strain in their relationship. She talked about how she hates him. She accused O'Keefe of sleeping with someone else. She talked about arguments over the kids, which he had adopted when his sister had passed away. And those voicemails left just hours before before John O'Keefe's body was found. It also comes after we already heard in this retrial earlier on, the prosecution had pointed jurors' attention to text messages between the couple the day before John O'Keefe's body was found, kind of showing an apparent unraveling of their relationship. The prosecution alleging that Karen Reed had struck John O'Keefe with her car in a drunken argument. They also played this clip from a TV interview earlier today. Listen here.
I didn't think I hit him, but could I have clipped him? Could I have tapped him in the knee and incapacitated him? He didn't look mortally wounded as far as I could see, but could I have done something that knocked him out and in drunkenness and in the cold didn't come to again?
As for what the defense focused on today, they cross-examined a retired officer who testified he used a leaf blower, red Solo cups, and grocery bags to collect evidence from the scene, from John O'Keefe's body. The defense calling it a recipe for cross-contamination, though the retired officer defending it, saying that he was trying to move quickly with worsening weather moving in. The defense also questioning him as to why he never took the investigation into the house. All of this legal saga ramps up in round two. Hallie.
Emily Aketa, thank you very much for that. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day. And because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's a look at what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of Nepal, an American climber has died on the world's 5th highest mountain during a climb to raise money for childhood cancer. Officials say he suddenly became unresponsive while getting into a sleeping bag after spending some time at high altitudes earlier in the day. He was battling leukemia, although it's not clear if that played a role in his death. The climber, Alexander Panko, had already summited the highest peaks on every continent, completing what's known as the Explorer's Grand Slam. He was just 39 years old. Out of France, a Russian journalist suddenly reappearing in Paris after escaping house arrest in Moscow last month. She'd been facing a 10-year prison sentence for posts condemning Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. The nonprofit Reporters Without Borders says they helped her escape, coordinating covert routes for her to travel from Russia more than 1,000 miles to France. Russian President Vladimir Putin has been targeting members of the media. More than 90 outlets have left the country since the war began. And out of Germany, a conservative leader there just became chancellor after losing the vote on the first ballot. The first time that has happened since World War II. He fell 6 votes short on that first one, showing, how shaky his coalition is, at least right now. Friedrich Merz won an election in February, but his party failed to pick up enough seats. He teamed up with a center-left group so that far-right party, known as AfD, would not be able to take power. Still ahead here on the show, fears, concern growing around this hepatitis outbreak in Southern California. Why that's bad news for LA and maybe beyond. Next. Health officials now sounding the alarm about an outbreak in Los Angeles of hepatitis A, with infections spiking. They're actually triple what they were compared to 2023's numbers and double what they were compared to last year. What's interesting here, we know this is a virus that typically affects people experiencing homelessness at a higher rate because they don't have as much access to clean bathrooms. But health officials say this outbreak, these infections, have actually come from people without those risk factors. I want to bring in Dr. Natalie Azar, who's joining us now. Why is this happening? Why is this outbreak spiking and spreading so quickly?
So I think the explanation, Hallie, are the key words that you used in the intro, and that is that this is a highly, highly contagious virus. And just because you have a home and you have access to clean water and practice good hygiene habits doesn't mean that you couldn't theoretically be exposed from contaminated food or water. The tricky thing about hepatitis A is that you can be contagious for a week or two before your symptoms even begin. So the problem here is that clearly, based on wastewater values, this is pretty widespread in the community right now, which means also that I think we're going to see this outbreak a little bit more protracted, and it will probably go on for a few weeks or even a couple of months from now, Hallie.
So our health officials, what are they telling people in LA to do, and what's their concern about this maybe spreading beyond just California?
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing that they're talking about is prevention. And the best way to prevent hepatitis A is through vaccination. There is a CDC recommendation for all individuals, starting with children at the age of 12 months, to be vaccinated, which is highly, highly effective. In the absence of hepatitis A vaccine, it's really about hand hygiene and good hand washing. If you are at a higher risk, let's say user of recreational drugs, certain sexual practices, if you don't have access to toilets and clean water, those are the individuals that they're really urging vaccination in right now, Hallie.
Dr. Natalie Azar, thank you very much for that breakdown for us tonight. Really appreciate that. We've got a lot more to get to here on the show, including how DOGE funding cuts could be making extreme weather possibly more dangerous. The new alarms from former National Weather Service leaders in our one-on-one tonight. To tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's the growing concern from weather experts that more Americans could be in danger because of those recent and proposed cuts. It could mean fewer forecasters keeping watch for extreme weather. All of it happening during the peak season right now for severe storms across the country. NBC News meteorologist Chase Kane reports.
Right at dinner time on April 17th,
we have a tornado warning issue for Pottawatomie County.
Supercell storms started producing tornadoes across eastern Nebraska.
It's really scared last night.
Our Omaha affiliate reporting homes and cars badly damaged, windows blown out, roofs ripped off, one family caught off guard.
We didn't think anything of it, and then my wife started screaming at me, so we hightailed it to the basement, and it was about 20 seconds after I got down there that it ripped through.
Luckily, everyone survived, but with only seconds to spare, is it possible they could have gotten an earlier warning? What we do know from an official bulletin is that the Omaha National Weather Service office didn't have enough staff to launch regular weather balloons that day. Only one instead of two, which meant their data was hours old and only showed the threat of hail, not tornadoes.
And that's impossible to forecast when and where. Not having that data could have saved a life or created a warning that had greater lead time. But if you do it over and over and over again, I can promise you that not having that data is going to be a problem when it comes to forecasting.
And it's all because of a political tornado. DOGE federal employee buyouts and cuts earlier this year, leading to that, quote, lack of office staffing. And now, in a rare move, every living former director of the National Weather Service, dating back to President Reagan, is warning that President Trump's proposal to cut NOAA funding by nearly 30% will lead to a, quote, needless loss of life. We reached out to the White House, and a Commerce spokesperson said, in part, NOAA does not anticipate any disruptions in services as a result of staff reorganizations, and the NWS will continue to meet its mission of ensuring public safety amid critical weather events. But a former NWS director disagrees.
We are generating kind of a Swiss cheese weather service. We have holes throughout the Weather Service now that are not well thought out.
Republican Congressman Mike Flood represents the area hit by those 6 tornadoes on April 17th with a short-staffed weather office. So he called the White House to get more meteorologists to Omaha.
For decades, the National Weather Service personnel have not been classified as public safety. They are clearly public safety, and that's something that we need to do in Congress.
The last NOAA administrator, Rick Spinrad, also tallied that so far, staff cuts have cost the Weather Service 7,000 years of collective experience.
It's like having incoming missiles and not being able to tell anyone when they're coming or where they're coming.
A NOAA spokesperson told NBC News work is underway to restore services at local forecast offices around the country.
There are things in NOAA that I'm sure could be improved, but you don't do that improvement with a hatchet and just randomly cut large chunks. Weather in this nation should not be a political issue.
Chase Kane is joining us now. Chase, you heard Representative Flood, again, Republican, saying it's up to Congress to make some of these changes here. What can they do? What are the next steps here? How does this work?
His office told me, Hallie, that they are already drafting that legislation. There's some technical language involved, so they say it's probably going to take them a few weeks. But once they have that bill ready, they are fully expecting that this will have bipartisan support. Because, as you heard in that story, weather is not a partisan issue. Tornadoes and wildfires and hurricanes don't care who you voted for. There was also recent research from the American Meteorological Society that found that for every tax dollar we invest in the National Weather Service, there is a return to Americans of $73. So a 73-to-1 ratio, a return on our investment for making sure that these meteorologists and these forecasters are staffed and have the equipment that they need to give us forecasts, Hallie, that ultimately keep every American safe.
Chase Kane, thank you very much for that reporting. That does it for us for this hour. Thank you very much for watching. We've got more coverage picking up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.